Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Well, I want to start by asking each of you to tell me, why did you start blogging initially? What is different about it from when you started as to what is going on today? How has it changed in the time since you started? I'll start with Ed.
Well, I was regarded as a runaway from the old media world when I started blogging, because it was all the friends of mine who were writing for the Times or Gourmet, they said, "What are you doing? Blogging is just for people who can't get work, and you get a lot of work." So, but for me, it was a matter of wanting to extend the conversation that I had with the readers of the New York Times or Gourmet magazine or whomever, whether it was, when I was doing a radio show for WNYC, short form radio pieces for them. And for me, I always felt like I had this relationship, but I couldn't take it very far. I had the relationship with the readers or the listeners or the viewers, if it was a television show I was doing. And what, of course, blogging does is it allows you to continue the conversation ad nauseum, in fact. And so the other reason that I decided to start blogging was I love the idea of not having any more gatekeepers in my life. Gatekeepers take the form of editors, producers, and I was always pigeonholed as, oh yeah, you're the funky food guy, you write about hamburgers, or you write about hot dogs, or you wrote a whole book on pizza, or you're the New York food guy, or you're this and you're that. I'd say, well, but can I write something about the Farm Bill? No, you write about pastrami. You can't write about the Farm Bill. Or it's like, well, I had this really great dish at Le Bernardin at Michael Escada's. No, we have somebody who covers Michael Escada's. We don't need you to do that. And so what blogging does, of course, in a wonderful way, is it removes all the gatekeepers. Now, especially for people starting out, the idea that gatekeepers perform a valuable function. Editors perform a valuable function. Producers perform a valuable function. But for me, I felt like I was at the point in my writing career and in my media career that I really didn't need the gatekeepers. Not that editors didn't, for the Times, make my pieces better, because they absolutely did. I had phenomenal editors at the New York Times. Not so much at some other New York newspapers, but we won't get into that. But anyway, so that's really, for me, blogging was like an emancipation proclamation. It was, I was throwing off the chains of the, the oppressors. So.
Now, Lisa, you came at it from a very personal perspective.
Yeah, mine just basically started as a hobby. I moved to New York from Texas in 1995, and I started my blog in 2005, but it wasn't until 2006 that I really established that it was going to be a food blog. I probably did like 3 posts in that year. But in 2006, I'd been shooting photos manually with film for quite a while, but in 2006, I got my first digital SLR. And I'd always taken pictures of food, and so it just seemed like making the blog, a food blog, was, a nice marriage. And I was always cooking, and I was usually cooking Texas things because that was the kind of food I couldn't find when I went out in New York. So it just kind of naturally fell into place that way.
Now, Michael, you are really chronicling what happens at the restaurant every night in your blog.
Yeah, I mean, what initially started, how it all started for me was I was sitting in the office with my boss, Eric Repair, after the busy holiday season. This would have been late 2007. And being very media savvy, he's like, Michael, you should do a blog. And I immediately said, absolutely, I should. And I think I started that night. And for me, I think
Bosses have a lot of power.
yeah, I think but it was also the freedom to do it, because I mean, at our level, there is, the media and publicity is a big part of our job, and I always kind of saw what the blog kind of did was sort of like a music analogy. Like, I'm the bass player in the band, and I go off and do the solo project. I have the credibility from the main band, but hopefully I bring some artistic street cred back to the original band. But it's funny how you mentioned, part of your question was also about how it evolved, and one of the very first bits of advice I was given, the very first post, I immediately sent it to maybe 5 trusted friends who also were writers or in the media, and one of the best pieces of advice I got was, let it evolve, let it take shape, and I did that, and it definitely has evolved. I don't know exactly how. I haven't stepped that far back from it yet. I haven't had time, but that's the one thing. I've just kind of let it take its course.
Let me ask each of you why food is such a compelling topic online. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can certainly see it through the photographs, and that's a very compelling part of this. But why has it generated so much attention? People are flocking to food blogs like never before. Ed?
It's an incredibly democratic medium, so we can start there. Remember, in the old media food world, information was bestowed upon you. It was bestowed upon you by Gourmet Magazine. It was bestowed upon you by newspapers. It was bestowed upon you by various and sundry media outlets. And so I think it was really emancipating because everybody, first of all, food, it affects everybody's life. It's one of these things, whether you eat to live or live to eat, it matters, and health matters, and food safety matters, and deliciousness and pleasure matters so much, at least when I think of food. So it's no surprise that people flock to food blogs because people love being engaged in a conversation, and I think one of the reasons, to me, this success, and I think Michael's absolutely right, even my blog, which started as a business, which is probably unique to the three of us, I had no idea what it was going to become. In 27 months, it's become the most popular food blog in the world, basically, which is, I wish I could tell you, I could give you a design and tell you each how to do that. I have no idea. I can tell you that the only thing I knew was that I knew what the voice of the blog was going to be. Mm-hmm. I knew it was going to be passionate, discerning, and inclusive. And so anybody who writes for us, they need to know those 3 things, that you have to be passionate about what you're writing about, you have to be discerning, and you have to be inclusive. We want you to be greeted with a knowing smile, and that's part of the reason why our logo is that mouth or whatever it is, because this is not the Condé Nast information being bestowed upon you model, and it's not the Yelp model either, although there's absolutely a place for Yelp. So I think that it's not at all surprising because food is so much a part of everyone's life every day, at least 3 times a day, and maybe even more.
Lisa, you and I were talking before about the fact that we both have day jobs and the blogging takes place outside of the day job. What process do you go through to create a post, and how long does it take you to do that?
All of my posts, I probably spend on each particular post, I'd say probably about 8 hours. But in terms of what I actually post, that's always going through my mind. I don't have like a direct editorial calendar or a syllabus, but there's this whole vast canon of Texas food, and I want to talk about it. So, and I'll be talking to a Texan friend or my grandma or someone, and they'll mention something and I would have forgotten about it. I'll be like, oh, I should put that on the blog. Or, you know, I get a lot of reader emails like, you haven't written about carne guisada yet. You need to write about that. You know, so that's where I come up with a lot of the things.
Where does the photography play into this? Why is it so important?
Well, it's kind of interesting, actually, that, I mean, for me, actually, most of my favorite cookbooks don't even have photos, so it's kind of interesting that the photos have become important. I just think they're pretty, and I mean, you know, it just provides kind of a nice visual element. But I mean, in terms of, I mean, I think I like my photos, but I don't think you're going to really learn how to cook. Like the Pioneer Woman, her blog, you know, it shows you directly through the photos how to prepare a dish. For me, it's just
Or evocation and evocative.
Exactly, yeah.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Well, I want to start by asking each of you to tell me, why did you start blogging initially? What is different about it from when you started as to what is going on today? How has it changed in the time since you started? I'll start with Ed.
Well, I was, you know, I was regarded as a runaway from the old media world when I started blogging, because it was all the friends of mine who were writing for the Times or Gourmet, you know, they said, what are you doing? You know, blogging is just for people who can't get work, and you get a lot of work. So, but for me, it was a matter of wanting to extend the conversation that I had with the readers of the New York Times or Gourmet Magazine or whomever, whether it was, you know, when I was doing a radio show for WNYC, short form radio pieces for them. And for me, I always felt like I had this relationship, but I loved the idea of not having any more gatekeepers in my life. Gatekeepers take the form of editors, producers, and I was always pigeonholed as, oh yeah, you're the funky food guy, you know, you write about hamburgers, or you write about hot dogs, or you wrote a whole book on pizza, or you're the New York food guy. I couldn't take it very far. I had the relationship with the readers or the listeners or the viewers, if it was a television show I was doing. And what, of course, blogging does is it allows you to continue the conversation ad nauseum, in fact. And so the other reason that I decided to start blogging